Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Last First Date Radio, featuring interviews with experts in dating, relating, and mating in midlife. And now, here's your host, Sandy Weiner.
Hello and welcome. This is Sandy, and I'm so glad to have you here in the new year. Welcome to 2018. I hope everybody had a great New Year's. Looking forward to a wonderful year of love and health and prosperity for all of you. And today I am excited to be speaking with Dr. Jeanine Staples about her new book, Towards Supreme Love in Self. We're going to be talking about self-love and the importance of loving yourself first, and we're going to be talking about some toxic relationships to avoid. Lots of juicy stuff, so stay tuned. In just a minute, I'm going to bring Dr. Staples on. And I want you to know that love is not just for those who are lucky. It really is not just about luck. And many of you have given up on love, and I want you to know that with the right tweaks and the right skills, love is possible because love is your birthright. And one of the things I love most is having people come to me with very little hope because everything they've tried hasn't worked. They've gone to therapy, they've seen other coaches, they've taken courses, and they keep hitting that wall of, oh my God, why am I still single? So I want you to know that this is my specialty. I love helping people get unstuck and get past that wall so that you can have the love you deserve. And I want you to also check out a new program that I just created. It's called Love Mastery, and it's really about mastering the confidence, the core confidence, and the skills that it takes to speak up and show up and be your authentic self so that you can attract in the right type of relationship that will really make you so happy. And it's expiring. We're starting on the 15th, so the cart closes on January 12th. Go to lastfirstdate.com and click on group coaching to learn more about Love Mastery. So every week I bring you a tip on how to be a woman of value, because the woman of value is the one who gets the man of value. And this week's tip is step number 27, which is embrace your beauty. We all have beauty. Even if you feel that you don't, we all have our own type of beauty, and I want you to really, really embrace the beauty that you have, because the more you believe in yourself, the more you glow, the more you're attractive, the more people want to be around you, and we sabotage ourselves so much. You know, I just have seen so many amazing women who have poor self-worth, and so I want you to stop worrying about cellulite and all the silly things that we worry about and really just embrace the beauty of who you are. And one way to do that, just a quick tip, is to even look in the mirror every day at your body and look at the parts that you're grateful for, like your hands, your feet, the things that it has done for you and those parts have done for you in your life, and really express gratitude. And the parts that you don't like so much, you might want to get some sparkly, glittery lotion and put it on. That's a really good way to start loving on yourself, or even some rub-on tattoos to have a little fun with it, because we all have our own brand of beauty. One last thing before I bring on our guest is to join my Facebook group. It's a private, secret, closed group, not secret, but closed group, so it's totally confidential. It's called Your Last First Date, and it's for women over 40 who want some support that is positive and forward-moving, not looking back, not being stuck in victims. So if you're interested in moving your love life forward this year, join my private Facebook group, Your Last First Date. And now for our guest, Dr. Jeanine Staples. She's a professor at Penn State. She focuses on dismantling supremacist patriarchies through her research, through teaching and coaching. As a sociocultural lyricist, she works to understand personal and public voices and stories to solve personal and public problems. Her work exposes the roots and effects of racism, sexism, and ableism. She is a sought-after scholar, educator, and coach and has received numerous accolades, and she's a survivor of multiple terrors in love, and we'll be speaking a little later about what that means. So join me now for episode number 287, Moving Towards Supreme Love with Jeanine Staples. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So let's talk about Supreme Love. Tell us a little about the book, and what is Supreme Love?
Mm-hmm. So the book is entitled The Revelations of Asher, and it's based on 2 years of ethnographic data that I completed with 10 women that I worked with over a period of time. And it features the stories of what I call terror narratives. Those are narratives about all sorts of relational and social violences and abuses that range from things that we often deem acceptable or par for the course, like emotional neglect, cheating, infidelity, lies and deception, psychological trips that come with narcissistic abuse, even verbal abuse, all the way up to rape and molestation and even physical battery. So the book features narrative accounts of relational and social terrors from the group of women that I work with, and I present them in a creative way. The book, even though it's based on 2 years of ethnographic data, it reads like prose. It reads like a novel. There's poetry in the book. My book has a soundtrack. There are links to music that are accompaniments to the chapters to create a really holistic experience for the reader. And it's pretty phenomenal. I'm super proud of it, and it's one of my greatest projects.
Sounds amazing. Yeah.
It is great. It's spectacular.
And I love that you're speaking about many of the things that people have deemed acceptable, because I was just having this discussion with my son the other day about emotional abuse, and his first response was physical abuse is so much worse, and I said no, actually emotional abuse is that hidden kind of abuse that a lot of people don't seem to really see that the severity of. And so I think this is such an important topic, and I'm glad that you're bringing these stories to life. And is this something I'm imagining that you have experienced yourself, which led to your interest?
Oh, yes. I am a former codependent, recovering, and I drew in narcissistic abuse for several years before I learned why I was generating those experiences, why I was basically like blood in the water for sharks, and how I could undo victim narratives around my identity and around my life. So I have firsthand experience with relational and social terrors in a really profound way. Those experiences brought me to my knees, were devastating in lots of ways. And so I use that space and also my training as an educational anthropologist to really highlight what you just described, Sandy. There are lots of ways that we are not educated. As we attempt to be emotionally literate, we're not educated about the significance of what I call the small T terrors and how really, really important they are. And because we are not educated and we're not informed, we often miss really what are it's the bedrock of our anxiety and our depression, and we miss it all the time.
I so agree with you. It's one of the first things I did after my divorce was to really get clarity about who were emotionally dangerous people, because when you grow up with a so-called not normal childhood that leads to codependency and other unhealthy behaviors in relationship, we accept as normal inexcusable behavior, and that wasn't good English, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I got it. Absolutely, I got it.
Yeah. And so when we start to see that line in the sand, this is absolutely not okay. We recognize it faster. We listen to our intuition about it. It's life-changing. I mean, this is the work that I do with my clients as well. It's just so important to stop putting up with bad behavior and to really understand that we can be attracted to healthier partners.
Yes. Yes, it is possible to, what I say to the women and actually men that I work with is that you can lose the taste for terror. There's actually a taste that we develop for abuse. It becomes familiar and comfortable, and it's where we actually feel a semblance of power. You can actually lose that taste, create new buds, and develop a new lover identity where you can actually feel more comfortable in healthy dynamics and environments. Absolutely possible.
Mm-hmm. So can you share a few ways that you have helped people to heal from past narratives and get into a healthier mindset and develop this new appetite for the right kind of love?
Yeah. So one of the things I do is I actually disabuse women pretty early around the idea of self-love. I'm not a big advocate of self-love as a primary concept to work with. And the reason I'm not a big advocate of it is not that I don't understand it or accept it. I think it's out of order. I find that self-love can be pretty shallow because it doesn't necessarily help a woman to understand where she's carrying somatic pain in her body. It's not sophisticated enough as a method. There is no method to self-love. It's just a concept. And there's no way of making it really practical to help a woman to understand where her pain lives and how to actually excavate her soul, to actually dig up the belief systems, to get to the root of her survival programs, which are on high, to really understand what it means to disassemble defense mechanisms and create new narrative structures. Self-love is just not sophisticated enough. So I talk about supreme love. One of the ways that I support women initially is I talk about supreme love as a construct that's operationalized. It's got an operational feature because it's attached to a methodology. To love oneself supremely means to really get to know the fragmented, disowned, wounded, orphaned parts of personhood and engage with oneself in a very deeply present and intimate way over and over and over again. It means to clear the somatic pain that's in your body, and it means to develop a new narrative structure to speak to yourself on a spiritual level with a commanding presence. It's a maturing concept to operationalize, and so I help women to start to understand how they're built, like what's your form, what's your function, because so much of our identities is taken from us in the patriarchal society we live in. We don't really know who we are. A lot of people don't even understand the capacity of womanhood, how big womanhood is, and what it means to stand in one's womanhood. So we start from the basics to understand personhood, how you are composed, what your form is, what your function is, and how you can operationalize a new lover identity that can actually take you into a realm where the past abuse is strange. It's not familiar, it's not comfortable, and it's not something that's desired anymore at all.
Sounds amazing. And I agree with you that most people, when they talk about self-love, it just feels like, well, how the hell do you do that? I actually had a call this morning with a potential client, and we were talking about that, and I said, it's not just go love yourself, because I didn't understand that for most of my life. People were saying, well, you have to love yourself first.
Yeah.
So you really, I love that you talk about somatic, the somatic piece, because a lot of people don't really understand what that is, but being in your body, being in the more, the feeling part of who we are, which we pretty much stay away from because it's so vulnerable, but deeper in where we feel it intuitively and where things happen and lie in our subconscious. I think we get so much deeper and so much we can break through pain and old wounds when we go to that somatic level.
Absolutely. So much of the time that we spend on self-love is just, it's not a good investment only because it doesn't take into account mastery of the somatic realm. It's too cerebral. It's all about go love yourself, basically. Go get a makeover. Go get a massage. Look in the mirror and tell yourself you're beautiful. Tell yourself you're worthy. Tell yourself you're... But none of that, all of those quote-unquote self-love practices, actually they can end up re-traumatizing women because they actually highlight the lack of faith and the lack of belief and the lack of hope that's actually present in her body. And so it's actually kind of dangerous to, in my opinion, to focus on self-love when a person doesn't even know who she is. It's not a smart move.
Yeah, people reject themselves all the time and don't know who they are and have been living their life for somebody else most of the time. I mean, that's the whole codependent part of who we become, is we have accommodated, twisted into a pretzel, tried to give up something for somebody without really knowing what was important for us. So it's just so important to change all that. So let's talk about the lover identities. Can you talk about the 5 lover identities?
Sure. So when I worked with the women for those 10 women for 2 years, the data revealed 5 what I call toxic reactionary lover identities. They're basically archetypical formations that the average woman might embody over the course of her lifetime. I gave them funky names, sort of pop culture names, to help people to remember them. So they're described as main chick, side chick, Bonnie, bitch, and victim. And I can talk about each one, like a 60-second spread.
Yeah, please.
For each. Okay. So main chick is a lover identity that's basically the leader of a pack. She's a matriarchal figure, or she aspires to be a matriarchal figure. It's typically a woman who so idealizes and idolizes the male-female relationship or a matrimonial relationship that she'll do just about anything to get it. She's very preoccupied. She's a serial monogamous. Whatever she does on the sideline of her mind or even in the front line of her mind, it's tied to that end goal of landing a man. So it can lead into an obsessive energy. It's all about, oh, yeah, I definitely want to lose this weight, but it's to get a man to notice me. I definitely want to take this class, but it's to get a man to think I'm smart. I definitely want to get this degree, but it's to make sure that I look very enterprising to a man. And there's so many tie-ins that often a main chick doesn't even realize how connected she is to the ideal or the idol, and she's losing herself every day, week, month, year, that she makes those investments over and over and over again above and beyond herself. One of the reasons that a main chick is a toxic and reactionary lover identity is because of the sacrifices that a main chick will make in the name of love. At its worst, this lover identity actually jeopardizes other women and children even, because it enables a patriarchal and masculinist view, in a lot of ways that are really painful. So one of the examples that I give, for example, is I say, Camille Cosby is the consummate main chick. And, does a lot of damage to communities when a main chick stays on her perch for 50 years, for example, or even 5 years. So a side chick is, that title of that lover identity is pretty self-explanatory. It's basically a mistress. It's a woman on the side. She basically is getting crumbs. One of the things I say about a side chick is she's pretty invested in fantasy, whereas a main chick is invested in a concrete fantasy. She wants that Beaver Cleaver thing or that Huxtable thing. A side chick is also rooted in fantasy, but it's much more sexual. It's sensual. It's erotic. It's passionate. A side chick is pretty much bought and sold on material design and material possessions. She's, what I say, is soft on the outside and really hardened on the inside. She's susceptible to touch and taste, a lot of very tactile energies in that lover identity. And she's pretty lonely and often desperate, even though she might talk a really good game. Questions so far?
I've known a couple of these. Okay. Yeah,
okay.
Keep going.
Let's go to Bonnie. So Bonnie is a woman who embodies that identity is, she leans into the Bonnie and Clyde motif. So a Bonnie is basically a ride or die chick. She's all about proving herself to be the MVP of a man's life. So this is a woman who might pay a man's bills. She might run his errands. She might make sure that his house is clean, that his laundry is folded. I work on a college campus. I know too many women who are doing the homework for their boyfriends. It's clear Bonnie designs about wanting to be seen as valuable and willing to give up herself, her possessions, her time, her energy, in order to be seen that way, in order to be chosen and kept. She's often resentful, exhausted, and confused in general. A bitch is a lover identity that resides in the most heated end of the spectrum, is a woman who is profane, she's argumentative, she's domineering, she can be caustic and sort of grating in her affect and in her presence. But interestingly, Sandy, the opposite end of the spectrum of bitch, I've also known women who've embodied that lover identity who are actually not loud or brash or profane. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, if you've ever met a woman, you stand next to her and energetically she seems like she's seething under the surface, just like a boiling pot, just about to explode. That's also an iteration of the bitch lover identity. She's just not screaming and yelling yet. So a victim, that lover identity is what I say in the Supreme Love Project community is that it's, in my opinion, the hardest to heal. That woman is pretty vested in a martyr complex. She gives and gives and gives and gives and gives. She's definitely a masculine giver in that respect. She's an over-giver, and she's a complainer. She's a whiner. And she's also on a steady supply of applause and approval. There are lots of people in the community and the household who depend on her, giving, quote unquote, selflessly, to the extent that she is also exhausted, also embittered, and resentful, and yet creates lots of evidence as to why she needs to invest in that identity, keep that identity, hold fast to that identity because it makes her needed. It makes her powerful, valuable, and she's really stuck in a spin. So those 5 lover identities are toxic. They're reactionary. I've found through my research that women are prone to develop one or more of those toxic reactionary lover identities if they've been exposed to relational and social terrors over the course of their girlhood, adolescence, and adulthood.
Yeah, so... And most people can probably relate to these, I would say. Definitely the people who come to me and come to you. And so which lover identity were you when you were starting to practice Supreme Love?
So I was a main chick Bonnie. And one of the things I say, I have a diagnostic that a woman could take. It's free on my website, thesupremeloveproject.com. But what I say is that typically the average woman has a dominant and subordinate lover identity. And they are flexible. They are malleable. The saving grace, Sandy, is that we can evolve those identities. You do not have to stay stuck. I was a main chick Bonnie, a dominant and main chick and subordinate in Bonnie for years before I healed myself.
No, I so agree with you that you can heal. And, so one day my mom said to me, I'm a martyr because I come from a long line of martyrs, and my mother was a martyr, and so it's in my DNA. And I'm like, hey, I'm your daughter. I am not you. And, it's just so many people come to me with, I have DNA in my, it's a people-pleasing thing. It's in my DNA, and it's not your DNA. You can't change your DNA, can you?
Yes, you can actually, and I just wanted to jump in there. So a part of my work, I study epigenetics, which is a field of biology that talks specifically about intergenerational inheritance. So when the women come and say something like that to you, they're actually not wrong entirely.
Oh, okay.
There is,
stand corrected.
There are genetic markers that we actually inherit in the womb. So literally consciousness comes into bloodstream. It comes into DNA markers. That's one of the reasons you can see a baby or a toddler do something or say something, and you kind of do a double take, like, how did she know to do that or say that? That was something my mother used to do or say, or my grandmother used to do or say. It actually is an inheritance. And so when people say that to me, I say, okay, fine. Yeah, you did inherit that quote-unquote gene. You did inherit that tendency, that propensity for terror, for sure. But the great thing about epigenetics and what we're learning from that field of biology is that we actually can do shifting. When you do somatic work and you couple that with psychological training for your soul, you can actually, over time, it's really about intensity of instruction over length of days. That's the formula. Intensity of instruction over length of days. You can shift those intergenerational markers. You can shift those hooks and actually evolve your consciousness and set up a new pattern. You can set up a new pattern and give that to the people that you carry or the people who are in your environment. So much of consciousness is a tie between our nurturing and our nature. But it can be shifted.
No, I believe it can shift. I just didn't think it was actually something so inherited in terms of like learned behavior versus like nature versus nurture. But, you know, it's interesting, you know, when we're around our caregivers and what we pick up and how we subconsciously do things that we think we'll never do. We'll never repeat behaviors. And it's like, oh boy. So,
and I would just encourage you, I would just encourage you and your listeners, if you feel like you're super, super stuck and it's a huge, big barrier and you really, why do I keep doing these things over and over again? Check out epigenetics. Just Google it. You'll find a whole wealth of information about the genetic markers that actually get etched into our DNA, our consciousness through our parents and grandparents and great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. It's a big line. A big line of inheritance.
Yes. And the good thing is that we can change no matter what the line is and how long it's stretched with the right kind of work. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're almost at time, and there was so much more I wanted to talk to you about.
Yes.
Tell us a little. I mean, I just want people to know that they can really make these changes, and I love, you know, when you share like some of the steps. So when you talk, like, can you give us just one example of some somatic healing that you have done?
Sure. So the primary tool that we use in the Supreme Love Project is it's called the Supreme Love Healing Methodology, and it's a guided meditation that does quantum level healing in your somatic space. And so it's where I'm able to actually link up with people spirit to spirit and create movements between soul and soma. And it's about doing certain movements, reciting certain narrative structures while engaged in a particular meditative state. And it is fairly formulaic. It's involved. I don't teach it to the general public. It's way too powerful for that. And I really need to apprentice people to learn the structure of it. But what I can say is that it has created huge, fast, massive shifts that when they're happening in the context of a coaching community that has a curriculum that's paced out over time, it's amazing the healing that can happen. So, for example, I can be even more specific. There are lots of somatic memories that we carry in our belly. For example, there are lots of somatic memories that we carry across the back of our shoulders. There are somatic memories that we carry in our solar plexus, right in the middle of your chest. There are somatic memories that you carry in your skull, in the skull fractures that happen just because of the thinking patterns that we've done over the course of time. And when we focus on those spaces and we actually form meaningful engagements with those parts of ourselves that are telling stories about worth and value and capacity and possibility, we can time it properly and generate an experience that can really just release and uproot those systems. It can happen. I've seen it. I've done it on myself. And one of the things I say to women and I hope that I think you know that, I know you know this, and I hope the callers will take this and receive this. One of the results of somatic shifting and somatic healing, specifically that comes from the Supreme Love Healing methodology, is when you see your ex, or you see your parent, or you see that best friend who, quote unquote, abandoned you, or you see that person who abused you, and you actually feel no somatic triggers. None.
Mm-hmm.
None whatsoever.
Yeah, no.
You can see on Facebook, Instagram, a tweet, their name pop up, their face pop up, their picture pop up with a new person, with new baby, with a new house, and you literally feel nothing. You feel zero attachment, no rising, no fire, no heart palpitations, nothing. That means that you've done a serious clearing.
So valuable and so important, because so many people still carry the pain of so many relationships, and this is where the healing takes place. I mean, this is actually the conversation I had with this client today. So it's such important work. So tell us how people can learn more about the Supreme Love Project and how it's impacting women all across the world.
Yeah. So anyone can go to the supremeloveproject.com and sign up for something free. We have interview series, master classes, webinars. If you get on our email list, you will get lots of really powerful free content from me that's high value that you can implement today. You can email support@JanineStaples.com, and our operations manager will be glad to assist you in signing up for a program that's free. And for people who want VIP level support and training, where they get a part of a small group coaching program where I work with people either for 12 weeks or 12 months, depending on what your goals are, you can also email support@JanineStaples.com. It's not open to the public. My groups are by invitation only. I would need to hop on the phone with you and make sure that we're a match. And those are tuition-based programs, and that's where I teach the healing methodologies, and I teach the methods and the scripts and the narrative structures that can change your life immediately.
Sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jeanine. Your work is beautiful and so important in this world, and thank you for doing this work and helping so many people to heal.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been wonderful. You are a blessing, and I hope to talk to you again soon. I hope everyone stays well in this new year.
Thank you. You too. And thanks, everybody, for listening today, and I hope you go on your last first date very soon. Have a great day.